A very good evening and a warm welcome to Personal Finance. I'm Gugulethu, Cele. And on tonight's episode, we speak to Lisa Griffith, an Associate Director at BDO Wealth Advisers, to talk to us about the implications of transferring your retirement annuity. Lisa joins us from our Cape Town studios, and so wonderful to have you with us this evening, Lisa. Perhaps paint a picture for us first as to how prominent the transference of retirement annuities is in South Africa.
Good evening, Gugulethu. Yes, that is a question which is concerning many investors, is the transfer of their retirement annuities. Many investors have retirement annuities dating back 20 or 30 years ago, and the new products they've heard anecdotally, or they've read, or they've seen the advertising, seem to have lower costs and often seem to have better performance. And so it's a question that most investors are grappling with. But there are many issues, there's many complications there, Gugulethu.
I'm happy you brought up the complications, because clearly before deciding to transfer your RA, there are several issues that you need to take into consideration here, and top of the list is the cost of the new RA that you'll be going into, right?
Quite right, Gugulethu, it's all about the money. The initial company which holds your retirement annuity investment is allowed to deduct what are referred to in the Act as causal event charges. Other people call them termination charges. And that is an opportunity for that company to recoup any expenses on the policy before they transfer the balance over to the new company. And Gugulethu, there's only two criteria for the calculation of those charges, and the first one is that they must be computed using generally accepted accounting principles, and secondly, that the total of those charges may not exceed 30% of your fund. So, you know, it's quite wide, I would think, and that, of course, is where the problems are.
And in your research, Lisa, you've actually noticed that a lot of the times, or over the years rather, these fees have managed to increase quite substantially, so to the point where one consumer even took the respective retirement annuity administrator to the national adjudicator.
In the case of this investor, he periodically inquired of the company as to the termination charges, and then he kept a record of it. And we were absolutely astounded to see that where one would expect that the charges would decrease over time, over the length of the policy, and therefore be continually decreasing. In fact, his were increasing. He took the decision, however, to transfer his retirement annuity fund to a new provider, and then he took his case to the Ombudsman. And we got a result on that towards the end of last year.
Maybe if you can walk us through some of those results, Lisa, just so that we understand what kind of bearing it might have on new consumers who might want to alter their RAs this year.
Certainly, Gugulethu. Well, one would expect, of course, that the charges for the initial setting up of the policy, for the commissions, for the administration, for any of the other issuing of the policy, that those would have to be recouped. But what we were surprised to see, and this is of course what led to the increasing charges, was that the company disclosed that they were including charges for future loss of income, and for the fact that the remaining pool of investors in the fund would be prejudiced by people leaving the fund, because of course there would not be those economies of scale. So they included a charge for those. So while in fact there was zero upfront charges to be recouped, these other two charges came into play and were increasing steadily every year.
Having said this, how does this tie in with the Treating Customers Fairly Act?
Well, the Ombudsman did get an independent actuary to verify the calculations and found that they did, in fact, conform to generally accepted accounting principles, and that they did not constitute more than 30% of Mr. Thompson's fund, and therefore they were legal. However, he was troubled by the aspect of treating customers fairly, Gugulethu. He was, and he has referred it back to the Financial Services Board. It seems that the issue on which he's referred it back is that these early termination costs should be disclosed at the inception of the policy. But I believe that there's more to treating customers fairly than just disclosing early termination costs at the inception of a policy.
Exactly. There's a whole lot more to that approach, as you correctly allude to, Lisa. But for someone who might be watching at home and wants to take that step to transfer their RA to a new company or a new administrator who might to have new promises for further returns on their investment, what are the key considerations that they need to bear in mind before undertaking such a transfer?
Gugulethu, they have to do the processes, and the first process would obviously be to ascertain exactly what the termination charges or the causal event charges, as they correctly referred to, would be. So they have to approach the existing administrator and ascertain that. And then they've got to calculate what their cost would be in their new investment. Any other variables, if they feel there would be enhanced performance in the new one, perhaps you can throw something in for that. And then you get out that Excel spreadsheet and you go for it and you calculate it. And that should give you some idea. Frankly, Gugulethu, if you're going to lose 30% of your fund, I doubt whether it's going to be worthwhile doing that transfer.
Exactly. Lots of number crunching, so it raises the question that, again, perhaps it's best to do this with a financial advisor at your side.
Absolutely correct, Gugulethu. I've found time and time again that the assistance of a skilled professional assists one to make those decisions, assists one to make those hard decisions, even if it is to take the hit and pay the charges and move on to a new one, or to stay exactly where you are. And we at BDO Wealth have found this time and time again.
Lisa, would it be advisable, perhaps instead of transferring your current funds to another retirement annuity, but rather opening up a separate RA on the side or an alternative retirement savings instrument and making use of that instead of transferring the funds?
Yes, I do want to emphasize that often one can re-engineer one's existing investment to enhance the performance and minimize costs. And there's often a deal around with the company, and you should take advantage of those. And regrettably, often that information is only forthcoming through an accredited financial advisor. And if one wants to add to one's retirement annuity contributions, it's often better to start with a new generation product than bumping up the contributions on an old one.
Overall, what are the themes that we're also seeing when it comes to transfers versus withdrawals? I know that the regulation is slightly different when it comes to pension funds and RAs, as there's certain limitations on withdrawals. But from your observations, are we seeing a certain pickup in the withdrawals?
Gugulethu, it's not quite an open season there. Your opportunity to take a withdrawal is very limited, only in certain circumstances. And the one circumstance in which you can withdraw your retirement annuity is if the value of your fund is less than 7,000 Rand. Then one's just allowed to withdraw it and move on. Another circumstance in which one's allowed to withdraw one's retirement annuities is on immigration, and that's been a welcome change. But you have to immigrate through the Reserve Bank and through SARS. You can't just move country, and that's not enough. The process has to be done correctly. And in fact, there is tax payable on the withdrawal as well. So that's another thing that people forget. On immigration, they are able to withdraw their retirement annuities, but there's tax payable. And then finally, we get to retirement, which is generally an age-generated procedure. You may not retire unless you have turned 55, or if it is on the grounds of ill health. And that's a whole different ball game. But if one has reached retirement age, that's often a very good strategy to rather retire the retirement annuity than transfer it to another provider.
Lisa, I'm happy you brought up the issue of age and how to approach your RA when it comes to the time of retirement. Are there different strategies that need to be implemented or explored by different age groups? Perhaps in your 20s and 30s, you're looking for the best product which can continue to give you a good return on your investment over the long term, whereas in your 50s and 60s, perhaps that's where you start winding down on looking at the options that are on the market.
Exactly, and certainly when you're younger, the high growth products are going to be the best for you, because you've got 20 or 30 years to go to retirement. Right now, we don't know where the market's going. China's in a bit of a meltdown. South Africa's had a few problems in the Middle East, etc. But we do know that over time the market will perform, and it's best to stay in there. So if you're young, you can afford to go for the high performance type products. But when you're getting on, when you're a little bit older, in your 40s and particularly your 50s, you should be a little bit more circumspect and just make sure you get good advice. Don't make that call on your own.
Well, we've certainly said quite a bit and learnt a lot in the last few minutes, Lisa, but perhaps just as a refresher for the viewers at home, what are the key considerations that they need to bear in mind before looking to transfer their funds in their retirement annuity?
The most important considerations, Gugulethu, are the costs. The costs, and understand that it's a very complicated process. It's not easy. You've got to work out the costs and then do the paperwork, do the calculations to find out where your best situation would be. And thereafter, the paperwork is a nightmare. But it will come to an end. If you do make that decision, the paperwork, especially if you work with a skilled advisor, they'll help you, and it will come to an end, and you will be in your new product.
Indeed. The secret is not to go it alone, quite clearly. Lisa, thank you so much for your time this evening. We appreciate your insights. And that's where we leave it for Personal Finance tonight. A big thank you once more to Lisa Griffith, an Associate Director at BDO Wealth Advisers. Well, if you have further questions or comments that you'd like us to touch on, feel free to get in touch, and you can send us your comments at CNBC Africa using the hashtag Finance410, or to myself at Gugulethu. Until next time, take care, everyone.